Hey, how you all doing? Well, as they say, we have the opportunity again here to, shall we say, stimulate a fragment of your consciousness to understanding, perusing, digesting another one of my videos. Antagonize you, annoy you, upset you, hit your button, whatever the expression may be. And I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it, but I can't say that you will. However, be that as it may, everyone seems to know that, hey, I'm here for a purpose, and that is not to deliberately antagonize anyone, just to stimulate conversation within yourself. And I'm in kind of a giddy mood here for some oddball reason, can't figure out why, but I'm having fun in any case. So the actual title of the video is going to be, it's a ditty that I kind of came up with a while back, and I kind of wrote it on the list to do a video on it. And I think it's going to be interesting. So I'm going to see what I can do with it. Evolution waits for no one or their belief systems on relationships. One of the things that I have noticed lately in working with a lot of people, and this would include the group and the soulmate, twin flame, soul connections, whatever label you want to use. And I've noticed that 99.9% of the problems that people are having is and can be put down to one thing that can be pigeonholed, and that is because of their present belief systems. Now, when I say present belief systems, what I mean by that is if most of you who are listening to the video can remember back when you first had your heart center awakening and your Kundalini activation at the same time, and somewhere in there, when the insanity prevailed, you came to the conclusion that you were going through something, and that other person that was there seemed to be the catalyst or the button pusher or the whatever that kind of went on. Obviously, what you did was you went through a process of eliminating a lot of your belief systems in regards to relationships as a whole. But I think a lot of people at this particular point have come to the conclusion that irrespective of whatever label you want to choose in respect to these connections that are going on, that the process they're going through is beginning to sound very similar to a process of evolution. And that process of evolution is remodifying, first of all, your personality. The personality changes in this process of evolution are probably the most important because, and I don't want anybody to take this personally, prior to your actual spiritual awakening and the beginning of the evolutionary process taking place within you, you had a limiting and a very contained, controlled perspective of your identity of yourself, which included all of your present belief systems. Now, one of the things about belief systems that I want to say here, and again, don't take it personally, A lot of our belief systems are not, and if I'm going back to the first stage here, a lot of the belief systems that we have prior to our actual activation of the evolutionary process were not even our own. Okay, and there's a very important point here. The belief systems that we have incorporated were the ones that had been put into us by our parents, our culture, our religious indoctrination, and all of the influences that are external. And nowadays, as a person goes through puberty and goes into young adulthood, you're constantly barraged. You're barraged steadily with influences, advertisement, programming, manipulation, political indoctrination, for no other purpose than to change your behavior to suit someone else's convenience. And I hope everybody will think about that for a while and just go back. The idea of doing a video with people is to hopefully make them become self-aware. And sometimes when you're trying to explain that, you're going to upset people because you're going to step on some toes, and I'm well aware of that. But I wanted to do the video in any case because I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to see there are quite a few people out there who are actually figuring it out. And a lot of them are subscribers on our YouTube channel who have figured it out, that the popular labels that everybody is using in regards to relationships these days are just a mask, if you will, or hiding spot for an evolutionary process. And when you first begin, as I stated in the beginning here, your containment field of your belief systems is not your own. One of the gifts that you're given once your process of evolution and the evolution includes, Kundalini awakening, heart center activation, and it can include radical changes in your personality. It can include radical changes in your health, radical changes in your environment, radical changes in your friendship and your social activities. It's all a planned thing, okay? And one of the comments that I hear from a lot of people, it's almost like they're in defense of their own perspective of their own journey. People keep saying all the time, well, man, it's wonderful what you're saying, but no one person can know what everybody else is doing. And I never said that I did in any way, shape, or form. What I do know is that the ingredients of everyone's so-called individual journey is Kundalini awakening, heart center activation, change of personality, are the three main components. After that, it's not rocket science to sit down with a person and talk to them, profile them a little bit, to understand exactly what their journey is. So to say to me, everyone has their own journey and I can't know what somebody's journey is not true, because I can and I do. One of the ways that I'm able to do that is in, for example, just to give you an example of the new state of consciousness that's being gifted, if you will, to myself and a few other individuals as we grow, mature, and become more self-aware, is the ability to be able to actually consciously, energetically jump in to someone else's consciousness or awareness and feel or digest or peruse, if you want to put it that way, who they are and where they are, how their journey is going, what they've been through, and possibly what they're going to go through in the future. And somebody will say, oh my God, well, you're jumping into their privacy. Let me put it this way. I don't do it intentionally, and neither do any of the other people that I know who have developed this skill. This is all part of the evolutionary process. And it happens spontaneously as a helping situation to individual. And the other thing is there's a sense of responsibility that goes along with the use of these abilities that have to be developed, and they have to be developed over a period of time. So when it comes to the evolutionary process and the belief system situation, going back to the point I was making in the beginning, is when you come to the point where you realize that your belief systems are not your own and you've initiated the pieces that I've mentioned, what happens is you will go through a period of time when you will attract to yourself, first of all, people or person or one person, situations, circumstances in your daily life, through what many of you will call the law of attraction, will be drawn toward you to, I'm going to put it this way, nudge, push, shove, kick, bash, whatever it takes to get your personality to open up to change and evolution. And in many cases, this is where some people like to say the journey gets very, very individual and very varied. And you're correct, it does. And you're also correct when you say nobody can know what another person's journey is. You're also correct for most people. But there are people who can actually join and view another person's journey and assist them in expediting the process of evolution as they're going along. That's what I do. When requested or asked to do that. I don't voluntarily do anything along that line, and neither does any of the others I know who can actually come into this play. So what happens when you have all of this coming toward you? So one way or the other, you begin to change, evolve, and grow. And let me point out something to you that I learned about myself, is the evolutionary process doesn't give a hoot, a fiddler's fart, all right, to anything that you may be doing. It doesn't care about your job. It doesn't care if you have kids. It doesn't care if you have to go to work. It doesn't care if you're a student and you're in school and you have to study. It is a process and it is impersonal. So if anyone thinks that there's going to be convenience in all of the drama and all of the changes and all of the biological, metaphysical, etheric changes are all going to happen on a weekend on your day off, or when you're on vacation in Cancun for 2 weeks, not going to happen. It does its thing when it wants to do its thing, and it doesn't give a rat's ass, as many of you have found out, to what you think or feel, because it's doing something. And a lot of us don't like that because we like to have this belief system that we're receiving some sort of divine intervention, that there's some fluffy bunny god, person or thing or whatever, who is going to help us all and fix it all, and down the road everything's going to be wonderful and beautiful. More belief systems, all right? And as many of you have found out, the evolutionary process doesn't care one iota of what you think about anything, because what it's doing is remaking you right from the day one. So when you get to that stage where you become self-aware of your belief systems are not your own, they're pretty much everybody else's around you, then you go through the second part of it, where a clean out starts to take place of everything around you. And yes, everybody's journey is different because everybody comes from different circumstances and everybody has a different kind of personality. Yes, there are many different facets of personality that are similar, but each unique one in your personality is directly related to your previous life experiences that you've had growing up, coming through puberty, into adulthood, and your relationship experiences and your sexual experiences. All of those are taken into consideration. And I can tell you something. People say you can't know another person's journey. You know what I found out? I found out that most people, as a rule, you don't know what your journey is either, for most of you. And that's the key to the video. You need to be able to become aware of what your journey actually is. That's called self-awareness. So it's good to say nobody can know what your journey is, but it's also better if you can say, well, you know what your journey is, and most of you don't know. You don't. It's the bottom line. That's because you still haven't become aware yet of you have a big, beautiful heart center in the middle of your chest, which is a focal point of your new and evolving state of consciousness and self-awareness and being and personality that is actually giving you that awareness to be able to do that. Some people like to say, well, it's my destiny. No such thing as destiny. Everything that's happening to you right now is as it should be. And it's evolving and unfolding according to your evolutionary process and the end result that manifests for you. So at some point, what happens is that you go through that second stage that I mentioned, you get to the next phase where you start developing the possibility of creating a new personality and experiencing vaster expressions of consciousness, which also incorporate major modifications in the hemispheres of the brain. And there are activations in the brain that are going to take place where the dormant parts, most of us are still asleep. All right. We're not an awake species at all. Any good scientist will tell you, and if I get the figures wrong, I'm sure somebody will correct me, that we only use maybe 4 or 5% of our brain. Now, that's a lot of empty space up there. All right. So what's in that empty space? Potential. And the only way you're going to activate potential is to have an evolution. An evolutionary, revolutionary change in your consciousness. And that means the old programming has to go. That's done in the first one. Then the new programming goes in by attracting to you all of the stuff that you need and require to get you to change. And for some of you, it's going to be like bashing your head on a stick. And one of the other finer points that needs to be aware of is sometimes it takes another person to come in and you feel that love, as everybody calls it, you know, in the spiritual community. And that really, really floats the boat for many of you. It really is the crock in the jar kind of thing, because it really gets people going and really putting them into situations where they are literally forced to change, have to change, or they go into such a state of rejection of the whole process. They basically go into what I call a hermitage. And in a hermitage, what has happened is the process is no longer functioning in them because they shut it all off, shut themselves down, they're in denial, and they don't want to grow and evolve anymore. And that's a choice thing. And that choice thing is made because they got stopped, literally, at a certain level of the process, and they are not going forward anymore because they refuse to accept the evolutionary process. So inevitably, what happens with them is you see a lot of people leaving the planet. And they're leaving the planet because no forward motion is being made at this particular point in time. And you're going to see a lot more of that. Get used to it. And you're going to see a lot more of it in your family. People leaving. Get used to it. So, now, as the evolutionary process continues, you get to the point where you're actually creating new belief systems. As long as you're into physical reality, you need to understand something. We're continually going to create new belief systems because they're necessary, because we need to anchor our consciousness in a three-dimensional vehicle that lives in a very linear perspective of expression, all right? Now, if you don't understand what I just said, is we live in a physical world, and that physical world is limited in its expression. Such things as traveling out of body into different dimensions and realities, going to different planets in the universe and exploring them, having telepathic abilities, where you can communicate with somebody else mind to mind, which has been going on for years, is not recognized by science, so therefore it doesn't exist, the usual shit, okay? And being able to project your consciousness into different objects, all right, or into someone else's consciousness to assist or help or exchange with them is not recognized by science. The medical profession knows diddly squat of any of this stuff, all right? And when you have people going through these symptoms and they start talking about it publicly, they usually end up in a round room and they're pumping them full of pharmaceutical shit to get them better, ha ha ha. And a lot of these people have found out they didn't get better, actually got worse. This is because it's a non-accepting society of the evolutionary process. How many universities here on the planet have a professor who teaches nothing but Kundalini awakening? How many high schools have counselors who are aware and are fully experienced in dealing with teenagers, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, who can talk to dead people, who can travel out of body, who can see visions, who can hear voices, all part of the evolutionary process. Science and the medical profession don't recognize this. It hasn't been proven, so therefore it doesn't exist. The evolutionary process doesn't give a shit. It just keeps trucking, and it's going to keep trucking. And the reason we're having so much difficulty in changing is because of all of these limitations. So to express in 3D reality, what you have to have is a formulated, formed personality that can function in different dimensions and timelines, and at the same time exist in a physical body and exist in a world of illusion. All right? I did a video that I haven't put up yet, and I'm deciding whether I'm going to put up yet. I've discovered that the real world is not here in the physical. This is the illusion. This is the limitation. The real world is everywhere else around you in consciousness as it expresses in different timelines and dimensions. And this is what many of us are experiencing at this point. However, in order to experience this, you've got to have a personality, and you've got to have a stable energy body, and you've got to have a stable chakra system that can contain this kind of consciousness and still express in three-dimensional reality. And it's tricky. We're in transition. And the way that this is happening now is the process is being expedited, as I said, by having another person come in. And I know there are literally hundreds and thousands of people out there who really, really are into soulmates and twin flames. I'm into that too, okay? But are some of you ever going to get out of that ditch and move beyond it? Because I still see, even with the evolutionary process going along, I see people who are getting into a belief system, they're getting locked into it, and they're looping. And all they do is keep going round and round and round and round and round and round. And the reason for that is they have not reached a level of spiritual maturity yet that gives them access to the evolutionary process and what it's doing, or looking at it from that particular perspective. I have to say this, and probably not going to like it much, some people, especially ladies, that I find that there are just a far too many ladies who are having this experience of the soulmate, the twin flame connection, or soul-to-soul connection, whatever label that you want to do. And all they really want is a relationship. That's all they think about. They just want to be with that guy. They want to be in a house. They want to live in the burbs. They want to have all of that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're open to something else that's coming along. And the evolutionary process is working towards changing our concept of relationships. In a sense, in the 3D world, we're consumers. You know that? Every one of us is a consumer. We consume at a voracious rate. If we keep growing and populating the way we are, we're going to consume everything on this planet in the present state of consciousness that we've had over the last few years. If you want to know how much of a consumer you are, if you own a house, go in the basement and see how much stuff you got packed away you don't even use anymore. Or go out in the garage, or your closet, or your woodshed, or whatever the hell else, and see how much stuff you got packed away you don't even use anymore, you bought because you need it, and you just have it as a consumer. You didn't really need it all that much, you just wanted to have it there. So what's happening now at this particular point, imagine the evolutionary process is coming along. So what's it going to do? What's the only way that we do a thing? We consume. So the evolutionary process is going to do the same thing. It's going to start consuming all of the fragments of our consciousness that creates the consumer so that we can become more free. So what happens? Somewhere along the line in the evolutionary process, if any of you noticed, you start becoming more and more detached from things. Like all of a sudden, the things that used to be important to you, like a new dress, new pair of shoes, new purse, and all that kind of stuff, or guys with some new tools or whatever, let's not leave the guys out. Everybody's guilty here. No, let me change that word. Guilty is not the word. Programmed, all right? Everyone is programmed to do that because that's conditioning. We've been conditioned to shop, literally. I mean, look at Black Friday. People lining up outside of stores, their behavior becomes almost prehistoric or Bushman-like as they're standing in line. And then when the door opens, it's like a herd of manic depressives or a flock of sharks in a feeding frenzy to consume. And this goes on all over the place. Is this going to continue on? No, it's not. Evolution is now bringing this up in people on a grand scale. And this is what's going on at this particular point in time. And again, I mentioned it doesn't care what we think, it's impersonal. And depending upon your belief systems, depending upon your personality, there are many different personality types. And depending upon the person that you attract to yourself will dictate the exact process of the evolutionary process moving through you. And it's not rocket science to be able to predict or actually show or tell a person what is actually coming toward them. So the idea that your journey is your own, no one else can know it, is bullshit. Because now there are lots of people that can do that, can figure out what your journey is. It's predictable. All you have to do is take a look at a person's personality, take a look at the evolutionary process, how it's moving through them, take a look at their Kundalini awakening as happening, where they are in the process of heart center awakening. Voila. It's like a book. All unfolds before you. So the bottom line here is, I think more and more people need to keep an open mind. And the situation here is this is, I'm going to throw this into this video simply because I like to see new things that get started, okay? And maybe because it's the right time and the right place. And I'm one of those guys, I like to follow the coincidences and the intuitive hunches. And actually the other day, a very good friend of mine, Jen, you know who I'm talking about, made a comment on one of my videos that how much she liked it. And she made a comment that she was trying to figure out, you know, what the hell it was that her and her partner are now, you know, doing. Or she said, I need a label to what it calls. She said, I don't believe in the twin flame shit anymore. And she said, I don't really buy into the soulmate thing anymore because we don't fit that menagerie anymore. And she says, I come up with a couple of things, and she said, one of them, she says, I come up with the thing that we could be ascension partners, and voila, It really resonated with me. Ascension Partners. Now, doesn't that ring your bell and turn your bippy? I mean, that titillates me to just, I love that word titillate. What is it? Is it because the word tit is in there? Or titillate? Titillate. That word really resonates with me. Why don't you say it a couple of times, see what happens? Titillate. Yeah, it does something in the heart center. Say, I'm going to titillate my heart center. Titillate. Titillate. It's like a mantra. And if you happen to be a female and you go titillate, titillate, I think females have an advantage here. Titillate, titillate. And I'm not trying to be rude or crude here. Titillate. Yeah, I think the feminine side is going to have an advantage here with using that word titillate. I'm going to try that down on my foot. Titillate. Yeah, I can do that too. I can move my consciousness to different parts of my body. I can do that. I can also do that to other people's bodies too. Titillate. I like that word. Sorry, I got off topic there. Anyway, titillate. Nice word. I'm going to use it down the road. So anyway, the idea with the evolutionary process, it is changing things, and it's going to be moving in directions down the road where we're going to have a society which is now dependent upon technology and totally addicted to technology. We're going to have more and more people with telepathic abilities. We're going to have more and more people who can go out of body, can go to other dimensions and timelines. We're going to have more and more people who can communicate, with people who have passed on from the physical. We're going to have more and more people who can do energy work and healing work, if you want to call it that. Probably not exactly the right word, but energy workers with people. We're going to have more people that are going to come forth who are going to be exceptionally good at working with people going through the process. We're going to have people who are going to come into relationships, and these relationships are going to be very, very profound, and they're going to be very, very different. Somebody's going to say, well, what do you mean by different? Okay, I'll explain it to you. One is they don't need a piece of paper to say that they're together. Two, they're not going to follow the conventional laws of behavior of relationship based on cultural, religious, or any kind of people indoctrination. They're going to formulate their own relationship without all of the other stuff that's in it. As you know, in every different part of the world, you have a different expression, in some cases, of religion or culture or whatever, and there are expectations and agendas and protocols and a whole bunch of other stuff they're going to follow. People are going to stop doing that. They're not going to let those influences come into play in regards to coming together with a relationship. All right? For one thing, you're going to see a situation in some countries where marriages of convenience are no longer arranged, all right, by the influences that were before, because you're going to have people who are going to have enough personality and self-awareness development and energetic evolution take place that those influences will have no bearing on them. What I mean by that is, look, when it comes to the family unit, and this is what I'm talking about when I talk about evolution. The evolutionary process is rebuilding the family unit. All right, there's nothing wrong with it, and don't get me wrong. I'm not against family. I'm not against relationships at all. I'm all for them. But it's time for a change. And that change is in the past, all of our relationships that we got together with, all of our concept of love, and even our concept and expression of sexuality, was all based on influences other than our own. Now, for example, I'll give you a brief example. For example, our sexuality and our sexual expression usually comes from outside information, or it comes from traumatic experiences that we've had in our childhood. As we know, there isn't a family on the planet, a bloodline or a soul group, that doesn't have sexual abuse in there somewhere. It's there in everybody, and some people say, well, it's not in my family. Oh, yes, it is. You just skipped a generation, that's all. It's there everywhere. And the end result is what you see manifesting at this particular point in time. You have just about everybody on the planet has herpes or some other kind of clap or whatever, or they're going to get it. All right. So there's a shining example. These are about belief systems, restricted, controlled, manipulated sexual behavior. And that's being purged and cleansed out also, so that people can begin to express their own sexuality freely without the conditioning. And when I say freely, what I mean by that is there's going to be a period of time with the evolutionary process when they're going to want to experience, if I can put it that way. And each individual will want to experience it based on the personality that they have. I'm not saying here people are going to go wild and nuts and we're going to have swingers and orgies and all that kind of shit. That's not what I'm saying. Some people are going to jump in and say, well, that's what I'm suggesting. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm suggesting is people based on the personality, the awareness, the spiritual maturity that they have evolved to, the word evolved to, they will begin to express their love and their concept of relationship and their sexuality from that perspective, not from the old crap. If you understand what I'm saying. Does this make sense? I hope so. And this is what is taking place now. So we need to understand that this evolutionary process is ongoing, and because it's impersonal, it has to be that way. If the evolution, look, this is going to sound a little corny to some of you, but if the evolutionary process was compassionate and gentling and nurturing and caring and all of those wonderful soft and fluffy things, nothing would get done from an evolutionary point of view. Would it? Would they? All right. This concept of love is going to come overcome everything. That's a belief system. That's all it is. What's going to overcome everything is an evolutionary process who doesn't care how you feel when you're going through it. It doesn't care if you're in misery. It doesn't care if your beloved got his head stuck up his ass. And it doesn't care if you have to go to work. And it doesn't care what you think. And it doesn't care what you feel. Because it has to be that way in order to get some of you to change. Because a great many of you have this concept and belief system, you'll like this one, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal, okay? If you'll leave me alone for the rest of the week, I'll let you do your thing on Saturday afternoon when I'm not busy having a few beers with the boys, or I don't have to go shopping and buy that new pair of shoes and a purse. It has to be impersonal. Can you understand that? It's the impersonal part of the evolutionary process that is expressing pure love for you. Do you understand that? It's impersonal. I don't think many people are actually going to understand what I just said. It's impersonal because it has to, because it loves you. Because it loves you so much, it's doing what it's doing. Now, a lot of people are going to go and I think this smell guy is nuts. And there's going to be a few of you who are going to be right on the same page with me of understanding. So there you go. So how do you like the new term? Compliments of my friend Jen, Ascension Partners. I like it. It vibes with me almost as much as titillating. I love it. Mom, hang on a minute. Mom, I got a new one for you here. Wherever you are at the moment? Yeah. Okay. Titillating. Do it. She says, I have no idea what you're talking about, Mel. You know what? Lots of people don't, but that's okay. Sooner or later they will. Anyways, if the evolutionary process that you're going through right now has manifested with another person in your life, understand the priority is the process. The priority is not the other person yet. It could be that other person is simply there as part of the evolutionary process to assist and present the both of you with an opportunity to grow. Don't get locked in to labels. Yes, I still think I'm a twin flame, but I'm much more than that, as some of you already know. And I am going to be spreading my wings a little wider and fly, because it's time. Not now, Mom. I said not now. I got to sign off. Time to go here. Okay? All right. Thank you. Anyways, I hope everyone's going to have a great day. And I hope the force flows through you with lots of love when you really don't want it. Can you believe that? A lot of you have the evolutionary process flowing through you, and it's coming at you with all the love that it has. But you don't want it because it's not the kind of love you have in your consciousness and your belief system at the moment to understand it. Because you have to understand that unconditional love is impersonal. It truly is. The problem we have is we keep attaching belief systems and definitions to it. And that's the biggest problem we have on the planet right now. Unconditional love needs to be impersonal. And when that begins to express through you in its truest and purest form, you're going home. Not before. Have a great day, everybody.